gravitate towards the light. Light is really important in our culture. We have different kinds of lighting in our classroom. We have low lighting, bright lights, dimmer lights. We have different variations. We have colored lights. But if you were to see our classrooms and to see how American Sign Language is used, American Sign Language actually looks very different in different kinds of light and different shades of light, I would say. So if the light is very bright, it may be very easy for us to communicate to each other. If the light becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and almost dark, it actually makes it almost difficult and impossible to see each other. We can't communicate, we can't interact. And so having different kinds of light and having kids exposed to different kinds of light in their environment really teaches them to adjust the lighting themselves and what works for them. In this picture here, this is of a toddler classroom, and it's actually a very, very beautiful setup. Nice small space. We've got a colored light in the background. However, a couple interesting things I'd like to point out is, after what I had mentioned in previous slides, this picture almost seems ineffective for our deaf culture and for our environment. As you see, the kids are side by side. They're at a rectangular table, not a round one. The space is small. It almost seems too small to actually be using sign language in it. And yet it's a very, very effective environment. And it might be a little bit difficult to see, but the reason being is because there's actually a mirror right here. And now the students can actually access each other's reflection in order to communicate. So although it may be small, it's very effective. Sorry, you were right to go next. This is a movie clip that I'd like to show you in a few minutes. I want to explain first a little bit about it. This is a preschool classroom, and the girls here are studying teeth. They're looking at different animal teeth as well as their own teeth. And they each have a little ball of clay that they can use to form the teeth that they would like to. And what I find very fascinating about this picture here is that this little girl here on the left is very, very, very fascinated with the camera that's filming her. And what I noticed about her, she's using this mirror not only just to see herself, but to also see what's happening behind her and really looking at that space and that world that she is in. And she's not being very obvious about it. She's not going to turn her head. She's not going to turn her whole body to look. She makes very subtle movements with her eyes. And I thought it was a very powerful movie to show just how much she's in tune with the things that are happening in her environment. Again, it was very, very subtle, but she made at least 3 movements with her eyes to actually look at who was filming her. I'd like to finish my presentation with a story called Open Space and the Deaf Way. This was a structure that was built at the Albuquerque, I'm sorry, let me back up. Start this one again. I'd like to finish my story titled Open Space and the Deaf Way. This is a very beautiful story where deaf culture is influencing the environment and what students did in response to this situation. So this structure here was originally built indoors, and it started out as a pretty small structure. And when the students started to climb inside of it, the structure collapsed. Now the students had to decide what to do next. So they went ahead and said, let's build it a little bit bigger so that we can all fit inside. So they did. They built it bigger. They reconstructed it. All of them were able to fit inside, except maybe a few minutes later, it collapsed again. So the students thought, well, okay, this isn't working. Let's move it outside. So they decided to change their environment from inside to outside. They moved it outside. They reconstructed it, and this is what they came up with. Now, they were all able to fit inside. Once it was bigger, wider, taller, they could fit inside and